that is a lady who has an economics degree, PPE, Politics, Philosophy and Economics from Oxford.
No longer enough, if it ever was, for government to turn a blind eye to where things are made or who is making them. As promised, we will extend the energy profits levy on oil and gas producers to invest in homegrown energy here in Britain.
Keir Starmer just publicly slapped down his own Chancellor in front of the entire world. During critical US trade talks, Rachel Reeves managed to insult their American hosts by suggesting Europe was more important. A catastrophic, diplomatic blunder. Within hours, Starmer was forced to issue a humiliating correction through his spokesman. What does this unprecedented public rebuke reveal about the growing tensions inside Labour's top team? And why might this one statement have jeopardized Britain's economic future at a pivotal moment in global politics?
And I recognise the difficulties that my right honourable friend is facing in terms of fiscal challenges.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. In what can only be described as a monumental diplomatic blunder, Rachel Reeves has managed to send shockwaves through international relations with a single tone-deaf statement. During crucial trade negotiations in Washington, Britain's Chancellor stood next to American officials and declared that the UK's relationship with Europe was arguably even more important than its relationship with the United States. The breathtaking timing of this gaffe has left political observers speechless. This wasn't just any diplomatic misstep. Reeves delivered this extraordinary statement at the precise moment when British exporters face the imminent threat of crippling tariffs.
But it's not a right analogy, and apologies have already been made.
What do you make of Reeves' "there is no alternative" line?
I don't think it's a clever thing to say. I think it...
Specifically, the potential imposition of 10% tariffs on all UK exports to America, with British cars, steel and aluminium industries staring down a punishing 25% rate. The economic implications are devastating, with thousands of jobs and billions in trade hanging in the balance. The visual of Reeves essentially snubbing her American hosts while simultaneously seeking their economic mercy created an immediate sense of panic in Downing Street. American officials, though maintaining their diplomatic composure, displayed visible signs of displeasure. The subtle shifting of posture, tightening of expressions and careful diplomatic language following her statement spoke volumes about the damage inflicted in mere seconds. What makes this situation particularly dire is the immediate pouncing by senior Trump allies, who have long harboured suspicions about Labour's commitment to the special relationship. These influential voices quickly circulated Reeves's comments as concrete evidence that Britain was indeed prioritising Brussels over Washington. Exactly the narrative Starmer had spent months carefully working to dispel through his positioning as a pragmatic dealmaker who could work effectively with Trump's administration.
The unlocking of house building, 14,000 new homes in a variety of places, in Worcester and Sutton Coldfield, and in Liverpool, for example. So, did not fund. And their failure to assess the scale of the challenges facing our public services means that this budget raises taxes.
Financial analysts immediately noted market jitters as uncertainty spread through industries already bracing for potential economic fallout. The pound wavered as traders processed the implications of what appeared to be Britain shooting itself in the foot during critical trade discussions. Export-dependent businesses across the UK watched in horror as their Chancellor seemingly undermined their very survival. What remains puzzling is Reeves's calculus. Was this a strategic decision to signal to Brussels that Britain remains committed to European integration, regardless of American sensitivities? Or was it simply an unthinkable error from someone whose job demands diplomatic precision? Either explanation raises troubling questions about Labour's approach to international relations at this pivotal moment.
Still a prospect that she may not even reach agreement, which would be even worse. But we're making it clear that we set these tests, we set these conditions at the beginning of the exercise. And
Last week, Starmer outlined a number of things in which he explained how a future UK-EU relationship should look like.
As Reeves's words were still echoing through the corridors of power in Washington, Keir Starmer unleashed what political commentators are calling the most ruthless public undermining of a Chancellor in modern British politics. Within mere hours of her diplomatic faux pas, Starmer's office issued a statement that sent shockwaves through Westminster, a direct, unmistakable contradiction of his Chancellor's position while she was still on American soil. This wasn't a minor clarification or gentle course correction. Starmer chose the nuclear option of publicly declaring that both the EU and US were incredibly important to Britain. The translation was crystal clear to everyone in political circles. The Prime Minister was telling the world his Chancellor had catastrophically misspoken on a matter of critical national importance.
And if the public buy into the idea that you're the person or the woman to sort it out, which enough of them did when she was using the phrase.
The same comments, but the analogy of comparing pocket money and personal independence payments is clearly not right.
What makes this intervention so extraordinary is its brazen departure from the unwritten rules of cabinet governance. Prime Ministers simply don't contradict their chancellors publicly during sensitive international negotiations. It's political suicide that signals chaos at the highest levels of government. Yet Starmer did exactly that, seemingly calculating that the damage from Reeves's gaffe outweighed the risks of publicly humiliating her. The timing couldn't have been more brutal. While Reeves was still in Washington, actively meeting with American officials, her own Prime Minister effectively pulled the rug from under her. Political insiders describe it as a public execution of her credibility. Imagine sitting across from Treasury officials who have just read on their phones that your own boss doesn't trust your diplomatic judgment. This was Reeves's unenviable position. This extraordinary sequence reveals the complex power dynamics simmering beneath Labour's carefully constructed facade of unity. Many in Westminster have long suspected Reeves harbours leadership ambitions of her own. Was Starmer's swift and public correction a calculated move to assert dominance over a potential rival? The speed and severity certainly suggest this was no mere policy disagreement.
He said that most of the problems since Brexit were caused because the UK wants to diverge and do different things.
Reeves's economic incompetence is mind-blowing.
It's quite a punchy title, but you know, then again, it's true. You know, and the irony is, I mean,
more troubling for Britain's economic prospects, the incident exposes fundamental strategic divisions within Labour's approach to international trade. Sources close to Downing Street suggest Reeves's EU preference wasn't merely a slip of the tongue, but reflects her genuine economic philosophy, one that appears increasingly at odds with Starmer's recognition that America remains Britain's most crucial trading partner. For a government barely 6 months old, these cracks in cabinet unity couldn't emerge at a worse moment. With financial markets scrutinising every word, foreign powers assessing Britain's reliability, and voters watching closely, the question isn't just whether Reeves misspoke, it's whether Starmer can maintain the party discipline necessary to navigate Britain through treacherous economic waters. Let's be perfectly clear about what we're witnessing: a fundamental leadership crisis unfolding at the worst possible moment for Britain. This public disagreement between Starmer and Reeves isn't just embarrassing, it's potentially devastating for our international standing.
And a master's in economics from the London School of Economics. So she must know something about economics. Everything we do should be to maximise the best.
Through our National Wealth Fund, our planning reform, our pensions reform, as well as reforming our public services so that we can deliver for the people we came in here to represent.
The Labour leadership appears incapable of presenting a unified economic vision when dealing with crucial global partners. This creates a dangerous vulnerability that both domestic opponents and international negotiators will ruthlessly exploit. What happens next will reveal volumes about Starmer's leadership capabilities. Was this public correction a necessary diplomatic rescue operation, or the first tremor of a government already fracturing under the weight of its contradictions? Britain's post-Brexit identity hangs in the balance.